Hello and welcome to another episode of Dairy Digressions, the new podcast of the American Dairy Science Association, the Journal of Dairy Science, and JDS Communications. I'm Matt Lucy, Editor-in-Chief of JDS Communications, and I'll be your host. Today we have a full house here at Dairy Digressions. I'm sitting down with members of ADSA's Graduate Student Division, including the current president and 3 contest winners from the 2023 ADSA annual meeting. These young leading minds won the best papers and posters in dairy production and dairy foods in a very tough competition this year. So today we'll be handing the mic to these students to hear the story of their winning research, their strategies for presentations, and their vision for a career in dairy. If you enjoy Dairy Digressions or have any feedback for us, please let us know at adsa@adsa.org, and make sure to like, subscribe, and rate us on whatever platform you're listening on, and spread the words to a friend or colleague. So this is a tremendous opportunity. I appreciate everyone for getting involved. You are very brave people to talk to me for 45 minutes to an hour. So for those listeners who might not be familiar with the American Dairy Science Association and sort of how it's organized, we have both professional as well as graduate student members, and these are our graduate student members. Within both the professional and the graduate student side, we have both production, which is kind of making milk on farm and how you do that, as well as foods, which is what you do with the milk to convert it into something that people want to eat and drink. And we have representatives from both sides of the equation. So today we have with us Connor McCabe, who is president of the Graduate Student Division and third place winner in the 3 minutes thesis competition, which he's gonna tell us about. We have Richard Lobo, formerly of the University of Florida, now with Noella Silva Del Rio at UC Davis, and a big shout out to the people at UC Davis, and particularly Noelia, who is a friend of mine. Here we go, Ursula Abu Rajali. Am I close? Rajali? Is that close? I hope I pronounced that correct. Close? Okay, close. Okay. And she's from Michigan State University, and Erica Cosmero. She's our representative from the Foods Division from Ohio State University. Fair enough. So it's tremendous to have everyone here with us. We're going to start with Connor, because Connor was the individual who reached out to me as podcast host for Dairy Digressions. And Connor, you are the Graduate Student Division president. Are you incoming or outgoing or all of the above, or how'd that work?
Currently incoming. My new term started at the conclusion of this last meeting. Will run until through this upcoming meeting in Florida.
And Connor is you're at UC Davis and Frank Mitlower's lab, and of course you're obviously involved in the methane. I don't know. You probably have greenhouse gases, or I don't know what you guys call it these days, but I know it must have a methane component to it. You'll tell us about that in a second. I know you're a Cornell guy. I'm a Cornell guy. Okay, so excuse us. But how did you get? So you were at Cornell, but then you're at UC Davis, and was there a spot in between those two places, or no?
Yeah, I made a stopover in the Midwest at Purdue, so I hit all the pockets of milk across the country. Yeah.
Wow. Anyways, so tell me, how did you get interested in leadership? I mean, this is the Graduate Student Division, and so, like, do you want to be president someday, or what? I mean, president of America, or what is the plan here? How did you get interested in leadership?
Yeah, so those goals are way beyond what I'm probably going to be able to do. But I've been attending ADSA for a long time. This past year in Ottawa was my 9th edition of attending the ADSA meeting. So wow. I've been going to this thing since I was a freshman in undergrad. So it also dates me to how many years I've been in college, but also how many times I've been able to make the trek out to that annual meeting and keep growing my circle year upon year. My time and opportunity involved with leadership with ADSA was started at the undergrad level. I think I had shot it all, and was at Cornell and said, this seems cool. Interested in science, interested in research, potentially want to pursue future graduate school work, wanting to be involved at leadership at that level, and then was elected an officer as part of the undergrad group. Really enjoyed the conversations with the board, thinking about how can we steer and orient the future of the ADSA organization, and think about how can we help our student membership, as students make up approximately a third to somewhere between a third and a half of all individuals present at the annual meeting. So really thinking about serving this, and have seen the program grow over time. And when the opportunity came forward to me potentially running, as I was looking towards 2 years ago, because we have 2-year terms, vice president previously, and then into president, thought that I knew the ADSA structure, knew where those opportunities were, and look forward to serving this year as president, and making this my 10th year of attending ADSA, to serve as a full decade of involvement with dairy science as a student, which seeks provided a world of opportunities, and it's really become my second home with that annual summer pilgrimage to wherever we're meeting that year.
Where is it this summer? Do you know? Have you figured that out? Anybody know?
Yes, it's going to be hot. I've heard it's in West Palm Beach, Florida. I think.
Oh, West Palm Beach.
I
That
think
won't be too bad a sacrifice then, right? That'll be decent.
some beach time after talking about cows and milk all day. I think Richard could probably give us some insight to
Yeah.
what we can expect.
Yeah, I think it's important, you bring up a good point that these professional organizations are so important, and just kind of meet people and getting to people, know people you might never know. And I think it's just this is a great example. So do you have what's your goal for this coming year? I mean, give me something you want to get done as president. All right, cut taxes, or what are we doing here? Cut
I
the
wish I
cut the
could do
costs.
that. We could make registration free for everyone, but unfortunately, we
Awesome.
can't do that.
Oh,
That'd be
what do you guys vote?
interesting.
I vote for this guy if he makes free registration. What do you think? So that's fantastic. The
Uh,
we want to talk a little bit about, now this is going to get a little crazy, because we're going to do sort of a little bit kind of a round robin type thing, and we're going to talk a little bit about this first section. We're just going to talk a little bit, what you're working on, or what was the component of your presentation, okay? And you have to remember, like, I'm a reproductive physiologist, so I don't know anything, okay? Like, so just give it to, explain it to a reproductive physiologist if you can. And so, particularly you nutrition guys, right? So that, I don't know, I'm just always the most afraid of nutritionists, and forget about the foods people. I have no clue, okay? So but anyways, Connor, I know you were in the 3-minute thesis competition, and your work on methane, but what were you presenting that day in the 3-minute competition?
Certainly. So the 3-minute thesis competition is you get one slide, no animations, and your goal is to distill your science from the big picture, like from the overall topic down to what is that one, two, or two key findings from it. And so my discussion was on some of my published research, looking at methane emissions specifically for California dairy systems. In particular, methane's very short lifespan, but very strong warming capability. And with different policies and programs we have in California to reduce methane emissions that the state has under its goals, my research was looking into how do we quantify the impact of those methane emissions on warming. And my research showed that if we aggressively reduce those emissions year over year, that the California dairy industry could contribute no additional warming to the atmosphere within the next 5 years.
5 years? Really?
So
No way. Oh, wow, that's fantastic. So does that mean carbon neutral? Does that mean something else when you say in 5 years?
in 5 years, we're looking at climate neutrality. So
Climate.
no change in the warming contributions, which means we can still have emissions being produced, but all those emissions that are produced also have to be removed either through natural or through man-made potential or removals from the atmosphere. So what we think of is less methane produced and more methane removed from the atmosphere due to its short lifespan, and that's how we get to the climate neutrality outcomes.
I think the one thing that's great about the dairy industry, and I've always enjoyed about it, is they're super aggressive in terms of just doing the right thing. I mean, I think that's fair to say. It's always changing and it's super aggressive. And there's two ways you could approach climate change. You could say it's not our problem, get over it. And I never really thought that was a good solution. It's not our problem, get over it. But I think it creates an opportunity. Obviously, the carbon credit market is something everybody's talking about, biofuels and stuff like that. Everybody's talking about. And so it's a really interesting area. I want to pop over to Ursula. Now, Ursula, you're at Michigan State, okay? You're working on fat feeding and dairy. It's a big deal, right? And I don't know Dr. Contreras very well, but I do know Adam Locke. Adam must be on your committee, I imagine. And of course, he's sincerely interested. And I saw you were working on oleic acid. And so just explain, I mean, why oleic acid and what is it that is, I know fat feeding is a big deal and I know everybody wants to talk about it, but tell us a little bit what you were working on with oleic acid and stuff.
So I work more on the basic side of research, so I'm not a nutritionist, I would say. The reason we chose to look at oleic acid because of the positive effects that we've seen when feeding oleic acid, especially with the cows during the postpartum period not losing body weight and body condition score losses. So my project, I looked at the effect of oleic acid on lipid accumulation, so fat storage, and also mitochondrial function and adipocytes, so the fat cells in these cows.
No way. So really, you can, now this is a little, that sounds pretty out there. So depending on what you feed them, that determines the fatty acid might determine how much weight they would lose. Are there aspects in nutrient partitioning? Is that the concept?
Absolutely, yes. Because we've usually seen with palmitic acid, they do produce more milk, but they lose more body weight. So we're knowing that this palmitic acid is driving energy partitioning towards the mammary gland, which is good, but also we don't want these cows to be losing body weight and going into this negative energy balance where they're more susceptible to diseases. So combining that palmitic with oleic acid, we're seeing that these cows are storing more fat and still producing the milk that we want without losing or getting into that more of a negative energy balance for a long time.
I think this is another great example of sort of dairy nutritioning and really caring about cows, right? Because we know if cows make a lot of milk and they're going to lose some weight, but we know if they lose too much weight, it's no good for anybody. If they lose too much weight, they don't get pregnant. And so what's so fascinating about lipid research is you've got options in terms of what sort of fats you include in the diet. And if you tailor it, you can they almost become like a biologically active molecule, not only from a nutritional perspective, but also from a biochemical perspective, which is I've spoken on programs with Adam Locke and they just want to hear Adam. They don't want to hear me. Okay. I mean, the guy, the fats are a big deal. So we're going to bounce down to Richard. And Richard, of course, again, fascinating kind of area for research in terms of substituting algae for soybean meal. And of course, cows eat a lot of corn and soybean meal. We know that, and a lot of alfalfa hay and stuff like that. And then I saw this algae thing and I thought to myself, the first thing I had to do was look up this algae stuff and like, where are you getting it? And it sounds like pond scum, but I know it's a lot more complicated than that. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing with this algae.
Yeah, sure. So actually the idea of the project was because like soybean meal, it's the most used source of protein, but relying mainly one source of protein could be kind of risky to dairy production. So we were trying to figure out other ways. So one of the options that we had was algae, which is a microorganism that could grow in fresh water, and we could produce that on marginal lands without affecting the production of other kinds of crops. So that was the main idea. And also, in this project is a partnership with the University of Nevada in Reno. And then we were trying to produce algae using wastewater from dairy farms. So we would get the wastewater and try to recycle the nutrients from the wastewater into algae biomass and then reuse that as a protein source. So that was the main idea. And for this project specifically, unfortunately, we were not able to produce biomass enough to feed the system that we had. Then we developed the proof of concept experiment where we got from a commercial products using algae. So we got algae biomass from commercial company, and then we introduced that to the fermenters on our system, on the flow continuous culture system, to evaluate the effects of that replacement of soybean meal on the ruminal fermentation and microbiome. And from what we have seen so far, we can kind of like improve the nitrogen efficiency of those microbes and keep the good fermentation inside of the rumen.
I think it's just so fascinating, right? You know, the whole concept of maybe you know, we use plants primarily to feed dairy, okay, but the whole concept of capitalizing on a different organism, and specifically a microorganism which can photosynthesize stuff and make capture carbon and make stuff from the atmosphere, and then you layer on top of that the idea of using effluent from the dairy to feed these things. I mean, that is just cool as can be, you know. And I always try to remind people, just because we feed cows this way today doesn't mean there's only one way to feed cows, you know. And I teased you about, you know, pond scum and stuff like that, but I did look it up, and these species are freshwater species. I was thinking maybe you got them out of the ocean like seaweed, but not true. Freshwater species, and they grow in ponds, I guess. And so I just thought that was that's a really interesting concept. And I want to pop over to Erica, because, you know, Erica is from our foods division, and yeah, you know, I think what's interesting about dairy foods is just this whole concept of the dairy matrix and what's in a dairy food to make us healthy, right? And I know your boss is Rafael Jimenez Flores, who's a great friend of the American Dairy Science Association, past president, and a little bit of a character, right, Rafael? I don't know. Erica's like, oh, you agree? Okay,
definitely,
so definitely a character. But I saw you were working with this, and tells you what a repro guy knows. You know, we're repro people. We think all bacteria is bad, okay? But anyways, Bifidobacterium, which is actually a pretty important microorganism. And so tell us a little bit about what's going on with that.
Yeah, so we're focused on this component in milk called the milk fat globule membrane, or MFGM for short. And basically it's this tri-layer structure that surrounds all the fat globules in milk. And we're so interested in it because it's reported to have a lot of different health benefits. However, we don't really understand its mechanism of action very well. So we're looking at how the MFGM can positively influence our beneficial bacteria in the gut, or probiotics. So specifically bifidobacteria, when we apply our MFGM component from milk to our bifidobacteria, we're seeing that it can help enhance the survival of these bifidobacteria throughout in vitro digestion, hopefully getting it to your target site intact and healthy. So yeah, some very exciting things.
I think this is, you know, when we look at the Journal of Dairy Science, everyone here is working on topics that are very highly cited and of great interest to our readers. Let's, you know, the fats, the alternative feeds, methane is some of our biggest cited stuff. And on the food side, really are some of our most highly cited papers are this interaction between dairy foods and human health. I mean, that's what everybody wants to know, you know. And as you know, there's a massive battle going on in whether or not plant-based alternatives can be labeled as milk or not. And many of us feel like they're certainly not milk, okay? And so, but I think this is a really interesting area, is why is why is milk good for you and how is it different, but it's also a hard area because when you get into this interaction between foods and human health, it's a difficult area for study. So I just love that kind of area of science. So I want to move to the next section of our podcast. And now we're going to talk a little bit about just sort of the contest itself. Okay. You guys all made the decision to enter a contest. Okay. And so, and I'm, kind of interested in, a little bit about that, but, in terms of, why you made that decision, but also a little bit about, your preparation for that contest. I mean, so if other grad students were gonna compete, what sort of things might help them in this arena? But we'll start with Connor, and then you did the 3-minute thesis competition, and so what, like, you're just sitting around the office one day and, hey, I'm going to do this? Or are you a naturally competitive person? I don't know, figure skater, hockey player. I mean, how did you decide to enter a competition?
Yes. So I greatly appreciate being able to do the 12-minute oral talks or the posters at the annual meeting. But I have our lab has a strong focus and interest on distilling the science and making it easily adaptable to anyone, and a layperson, anyone interested about cows and climate, there on that relationship there. So the 3-minute thesis, I would do it even if it was a competition, but that I always take that as a true benefit too. And enjoyed being able to talk about that. So, one of the analogies that I used for my presentation there was thinking about, think of the atmosphere as a lake. And, we think about carbon emissions as water. And what we got to do is we got to reduce the amount of water going in, and we got to increase the amount of water going out so that we don't, in a sense, overflow our lake or, overheat our atmosphere. So having less going in, more going out, that leads to eventually climate neutrality. And I think, having a strong message and memorable analogy is really beneficial if you're wanting to do something like a 3-minute thesis, because you only got so little amount of time, and you need to find something that sticks easily to readers' mind, that they can remember. So it don't matter, many of the talks will only remember 1 or 2 things, but something that cements in people's mind, I found was the most beneficial for this type of competition.
I think the whole, as I think we all appreciate, science communication has to get better, and we saw it. I think a lot about the vaccine resistance and what we just dealt with COVID, and when people refuse to get vaccinated because there's misinformation. I don't mind if you refuse to get vaccinated if it's based on science. I don't mind that. That's fine. Okay. But when you're not getting vaccinated because of misinformation, we're essentially failing as scientists. Okay. And I hate when science fails, because science has done so many great things for us all. And so I hate when science fails. And I think and this climate thing, we just went through heat dome after heat dome. I don't know, this summer, and I'm starting to wonder if people might start saying, maybe those guys aren't so crazy after all, and maybe the heat domes aren't caused by methane. I don't know what causes a heat dome, but it's been a heck of a summer, and I bet you people are ready to start listening about climate change. I bet they're ready to start listening. And so I think that's important. So Ursula, are you a competitive person? Are you a figure skater or something that just was like, hey, I didn't get to go to the Olympics, and now I'm gonna kill it with this fat stuff? Or did Adam? I keep saying Adam because I'm a good friends with Adam, but did he say, no, you're doing this or not, or whatever? How did you end up in this competition?
I enjoy competing, but I think in our lab, it's always encouraged to do these competitions, always for the good things, because you get first the recognition, the award, maybe money sometimes. But it also is a good way of, I think, pushing us to prepare more and be more ready. Yes. And it's also good exposure for ourselves as graduate students, and also for our research.
So did you, when you were getting ready, did your committee sit in the, did you give a 12-minute thing and your committee sat in the room and there was drama, or did you just do this all on your own, or how much drama is involved? Okay.
There was a little bit of drama. If you go and see, if I share my first PowerPoint compared to the PowerPoint that I actually presented, oh, it was a drastic difference.
Yeah.
But we definitely practice a lot in my lab group. Dr. Contreras really encourages us to practice, and he helps us a lot. So we usually practice a few times as a lab group ahead of the actual competition and also the meeting. And it's good to see different perspective, hear different opinions, and get just different feedback from different people.
I think one of the things that, it's not a lost art, but mentoring is so key to success. And
Absolutely.
when you listen to certain talks, you're like, there's a certain percentage of them that like, did anybody listen to this talk before it was presented? There's a little bit of that, but then there's the ones who are like, wow, somebody really worked with this student and explained this is how this has got to go. And I don't want to, it's not a lost art, but it's not a lost art. But in my mind, there's clearly a way to make a scientific presentation. There's clearly an approach to take to it all. And I think that mentoring is so key, and that's where, I always tell people that I was so fortunate, my series of mentors that I had, and to this day, you can really, as professionals, you see somebody and they're really, really talented, and you're like, who was your boss? And they say, and you're like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense because that guy was really talented. So you appreciate that tremendously, this effort. So Richard, any drama with you, Richard? Who was your boss, Richard, at Florida? Who was your boss?
It was Dr. Antonio Faciola.
Ah, yeah. So is he a Brazilian guy too?
Yes.
So do the Brazilians approach it differently, or how does it work with you Brazilian people?
So I think for in my case was pretty kind of like similar to Ursula. So my advisor in Florida, he used to encourage us like a lot to participate. Actually,
Yeah.
this was my third year participating on the competition.
Oh,
and
wow.
then and then he always encourages, and then we have those lab meetings to discuss the presentation and to improve it and everything. And in my point of view, like the most important part or my biggest motivation for the competition was to be exposed, because you have a lot of like well-known professionals in there. They're gonna come and see your presentation and everything. And also I had a lot of people coming with different backgrounds, which helped me a lot to build my whole story, with like people from the industry that they were working with algae, and then we were just like discussing like the real world, because sometimes university we have an idea a little bit different, but it was really nice.
I think I think you bring up a good point, is that, I must admit, I haven't been encouraging my students to enter, but the Ursula and also you, Richard, bring up a good point. Ursula brings up the point that it basically forces you to get your act together, right? And because you're going to compete. And then Richard brings up the point of how important it is for professional development. And I hope our listeners understand, these are hard competitions to win. When I sit and listen to them, I'm like, oh my gosh, they're all fantastic. I mean, they are really hard competitions, and it makes a difference. I mean, when you put on your CV or your resume that you entered this contest and came in first place, and people are like, whoa, you don't win this thing if you don't know what you're doing, And so, Erica, what was your motivation? I don't know. I keep asking if people are figure skaters, or I don't know, rugby players or something, or are you a competitive person by nature? Let's just start with that one, okay?
I think it depends on the context. So
Okay.
in this case, no. One of my goals entering into grad school was to get a little bit more confidence in presenting to an audience. And I found that by getting myself involved in the poster presentations a few years ago, and then now coming back for the oral competition, that's a great way to sort of practice your presentation skills, get comfortable being in front of a larger audience, and even have a conversation with those people in the audience as well.
Yeah. So did Raphael really get involved, or was he's a department chair or right, or something special, right, or what?
Yeah, he's the endowed chair in dairy foods here at Ohio State, but he encourages all of his students to get involved in the competitions.
Oh,
It's not like you have to, but it's highly encouraged for sure.
one of the things I'm going to roll back to Connor here in a second, but one of the things, I would like to see the ADSA do is push this harder for next year and the coming years. I mean, really get the kids interested in this, because it's just a great, it's like you said, it's a great opportunity to hone your presentation skills and get a lot of feedback, and just sort of get yourself out there. And I don't know, I remember I never entered this competition. I was scared to death. Okay. I was scared to death to present in front of people. I feel a little bit like young people are better at presenting. I don't know what that means, but I was always so scared to death. But there is it really sets you up as someone who's willing to sort of put yourself out there and stand in front of judges and your peers and see, and sometimes you win and sometimes you lose, but that's part of it. But you don't win or lose, you still benefit from that preparation. You still get that benefit. I always tell people, you know, the good thing about knowledge and is no one can ever take it away from you. That preparation, that time you spent honing your skills, okay, even if you don't win, no one can take away that experience from you, and that's probably why we, do things, and that's why we write papers and we submit papers for peer review, and even if good or bad, the end result, no one's going to take away the fact that you prepared that paper and submitted it and did your job, and I think that's just so important. One of the things I think about, and I want to just remind our readers that Erica's over in the food side, so you probably, maybe you'll tell me different, but you probably didn't start out wanting to go to veterinary school, or maybe you did, just but a lot of times the production side people sort of have an interest in cattle, they have an interest in veterinary medicine, and but I see, like, Connor, you didn't end up in veterinary medicine and you went a totally different direction. So I guess what I'd like to do is sort of go around and talk a little bit about where you see your career going from here, right? Whether I know, Connor, I think you're a PhD student. Richard, I think you're a PhD student. I'm not sure about Ursula, but where do you see your career going from here, and why? Okay, so this is something that I think about a ton, is if the University of Missouri, kids might end up in a master's program, but then when they say faculty, they're like, I'm not doing faculty. Okay, I'm not doing that. I don't want any part of your world. Okay, and so I love my world. I mean, I think it's fun. Okay, but so Connor, where are we going with this? All right, so you're in a PhD program. You're working on methane. You're going to make $1 million working on methane. So you're going to start a biotech company in the Valley. Is that what's going on here, or what?
I don't know if that's in the cards here, but hopefully something out west. Livestock sustainability, I think, is a hot topic to pretty much everyone right now. So job security is not a huge concern for me going forward. But this summer, I'm actually interning in San Antonio, Texas. I'm working with a grocery store retailer known as HEB, only in Texas. So for those folks outside of the state, think of it as something such as Whataburger, the Passion, and idealism that Texans hold that to. They choose that for Whataburger and being a Texan brand, and doing sustainability work for them. So certainly planning out kind of what they could look like for their beef and dairy future products, and how they source them, and support producers here in Texas. So kind of I don't know if I'm coming back here to Texas when I finish up in a couple of years, but I'm really interested in working with agribusiness or retailers, supply chain, to think about how can we take some of the science that I've been working on during my degrees at UC Davis and implement those in the supply chain to actually make a difference for consumers and in these retail goods, because there's a whole lot of commitments and a whole lot of action waiting to take place, and I want to help close that gap and play in one of those roles. And we'll see exactly where that's going to be in these coming years, but it's a super exciting time to be in this livestock sustainability methane research work field.
Yeah, I think I would ask you, why a PhD? Why didn't you just stop with a master's program? Let's say you're with Frank and you got your master's. Could you do the same thing with a master's as a PhD, or does a PhD get you a little bump in terms of, probably gets you a bump in terms of salary, but knowledge? Or why did you continue towards a PhD?
Continue on. So my master's work was in a complete different area. Actually more similar to what Ursula is talking about than what I currently work on now. I mean, we're all doing sustainability stuff in a sense, because we're looking to make healthier, more efficient, more productive animals that keep human health, animal health, and planetary health. So we're all working on sustainability. I had a strong interest in science. And that opens up further opportunities in terms of what you can do if in the future, say I want to pivot and go into an academia role, or work on submitting papers or pieces like that. That allows the flexibility to do that. And I know that there's no better time than when you're young to complete your education, because I know it's a whole lot harder to continue and come back after that. So wanted to continue on that, and started my PhD during the middle of COVID. And as we've come out, we've seen of COVID, we've seen a whole lot more activity around sustainability and livestock, and it's really hitting the exponential growth curve, and still.
Yeah, I think it's an excellent point. When it's interesting, when I was in graduate school, this was a long time ago, I stopped for a little bit with my master's and was working at a biotech company for a while, but then I ended up back at Florida to do my PhD. And I think there was one of the major things that really drove me is I knew, at least if I was going to be a scientist, if I had a master's degree, they would always hire a PhD above me. Okay. They would always be hiring a PhD above me. And I knew with my personality, that wouldn't work real well. I'd be 60, my age now, and they hire some young kid above me. That would drive me nuts. Okay. So I knew I was going to go all the way. And then the other thing that was, I always, back when I was in graduate school, that was what they all wanted to be faculty members, okay? And so now it's quite different, there's so many more options, and I hope we get some young people listening to this that, as Connor has done a great job describing, there are so many options in dairy right now. There are so many options, and it's so important. It's so important. This interaction between animal agriculture in general and climate is so important, and we need people that are super smart to work on that. And I think it's really true. Ursula, now you're going to have a master's degree, a PhD, or where are you at? Where are you with? Where?
I'm on my third year of my PhD.
You're getting a PhD as well. Okay, yeah. So, because a lot of the kids in dairy nutrition, not kids, that's probably the wrong word, but students, they'll go masters and then go out. But tell me about your story. You're going further.
Go big or go home.
Go big or go home, huh?
I think, originally I wanted to do a master's, and I started doing a master's, actually. I think I was a little bit scared of the idea of committing to something for 4 or 5 years. Especially we're all now in grad school, and we all know that grad school is a little bit tough. It's not something easy. It's a big commitment. But after about 1.5 years or almost 2 years into my master's, I decided that I love what I do, And just getting a master's was not enough for me, in a sense where I love research and I always have more questions and I always want to explore more and answer more questions. So I didn't feel that doing a master would satisfy me. And not that I couldn't do a master's and then a PhD, but then I just decided that going straight for a PhD is what I want to do, and that would also help me long term and in the future.
Yeah. Do you feel like at Michigan State, I was going to do an analysis in our division, but I didn't get it done. But do you feel are there many women nutritionists going for a PhD right now? Do you see a lot of sort of your peer group, dairy nutrition females? You know, because if you look above you, it's a bunch of guys, right? So what is that true, or is that just my misconception about what's going on?
It is true that the older generation is mainly males, but just thinking about people my age right now, I think there's more females, if not the same number of females to males, like the ratio.
So you feel like that's sort of changing. The old guard is sort of retiring, and you guys go forward. Do you want to be faculty member, or are you looking to work for a nutrition company, or what are you thinking about?
I love research, and I see myself working within like a research and development department within the industry. I love academia right now and what I'm doing right now, but I don't think that's the right place for me long term. So I'm looking more into staying within the dairy industry, or at least definitely staying within the ag industry, and doing or working in a research position.
Has anybody made you a job offer yet?
Not yet. I still have a couple of years, but I am looking for summer internships for next summer, actually.
Yeah, I think that might surprise people as well, as there's jobs out there for dairy nutrition people, correct? I mean, they're out there, and there are people looking, you know, because to try to fill these positions. And again, this is something that I try to bring up with students, is that there's a real demand for people with knowledge, right? And in a nutrition sector, of course, half of what we spend on a farm is for feed, and it matters. But you have to know stuff, right? You can't know nothing. You have to know something, and you have to be able to interpret information, and you have to be credible, you know. And I think that's one of the beauties of graduate school. But you also have to be willing to work hard, right? I mean, the dairy industry is not for the faint-hearted. You know, if you don't want to get up early and work all day, then do something else, you know. So it's really quite true. So Richard, you're from the South American perspective, you're Brazilian. Are you going to go back to Brazil when you're done and feed cows in Brazil? Or don't tell, you can't say, because your mother will get mad whatever you say, right? Is that how it goes?
Yeah, so I just finished my PhD. I'm doing a postdoc, and
oh, you're postdocing. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, got that wrong.
Yeah, but I'm looking forward to new challenges now. So I was applying for some industry positions as well as a researcher, and it's everything going on the right place now. So I'm really excited to starting soon on industry. So, but I'm probably going to be within dairy industry, but more on the ruminant fermentation side. So I'm going to be probably hopefully working on that area.
Yeah, and you ended up in Tulare, right? Anything surprise you about Tulare? Anything that's in Tulare that you're like, did not expect? Other than like, El Capitan or whatever. So what do you like about Tulare?
I really enjoy here. There is like beautiful places. So I'm enjoying the mountains every day. So I mean, every weekend, just going to the mountains. It's something that's new to me. I have never lived in a place like that. So it's really exciting. I'm enjoying a lot.
Did you bring up the mountains just to make Erica feel bad? I mean, oh my gosh. Or Michigan. Oh my gosh, where's the nearest mountain? And there's a trash mountain somewhere in Michigan, I bet, but no other mountains in Michigan. Michigan is so flat. I mean, it is flat, right, Ursula? Is there a mountain in Michigan?
are a few hills. Yes, we
There's
have
a few hills. There's some hills. Erica, are there mountains in Ohio? I can't name a single mountain in the state of Ohio.
Unfortunately, I don't know of any mountains in Ohio. So we might have a few hills, but no mountains.
Yeah, the highest point in Ohio is the top of the Ohio State football stadium, probably. I imagine that thing is massive. So Erica, are you can you tell me are you a PhD or a master's student?
Yeah, I'm actually a PhD student, and I came originally for my master's in Dr. Jimenez's lab and decided I liked it so much that I wanted to stick around. So now I'm finally nearing the end of my PhD and I'm graduating this semester.
What, do you have a job?
Not yet. I've had a couple offers, but we're still making some decisions and things.
Oh yeah. Do you have is it for faculty positions or?
No, I'm looking to go into industry, but I really want to focus in an area that connects food and health because that is where my passion lies, and hopefully within the dairy field.
Yeah, it's a great it's a there's just so many opportunities, like you said. So you're writing up your research right now. I bet you that's a lovely experience that you enjoy every day, right?
I've been looking forward to it all my life.
Getting out. Yeah, yeah, it was funny. Like, you don't have this problem, but us people on the production side, our mothers always think we're veterinarians, okay? And so I don't know about your mother, they think you're a veterinarian, and we had a funny story in my life where one of my cousins had a sick dog and called me up and wanted some advice. And I'm like, I am not a veterinarian. Okay. I work on cows. Okay. This is what I do, But on the food side, what does your mother think you do? Does she know what you do, or did she figure that out?
She's still not sure. She knows that I work with food and she tries to remember milk fat globule membrane, but that's about it.
That's about it. Yeah. Mothers are great for that stuff. I'm not sure what my mother thought, but it was I know my family thought I was a veterinarian, so whatever, it works. Um so I'm going to finish up with a few kind of interesting questions, and I don't know which one to throw at you first, but we're gonna take them one at a time, and I think we're gonna go with Connor first. We've been kind of going around the table here, but you got any good science advice that you either got or you would give somebody else? So you got somebody, they're a senior animal science student, and they're thinking about going, maybe they don't know if they want to go to grad school or vet school, what are you going to tell them about any advice someone gave you, or advice someone gave you about being successful in grad school? Any thoughts on that equation?
Yeah, so I would definitely say grad school, as anyone else can attest to, it's a ton of work, and there's not a whole lot of us dairy scientists out there for a reason. I would say definitely if you're looking to go into grad school, one thing I was told is you have to have the passion for it, because many of us are taking 4 or 5 years to do this on a pay that we're not advancing but not declining there, and you have to live, breathe, and it's going to be you and you alone that helps you see that in success across the finish line. So
yeah.
don't pursue this pathway if it's maybe not something that you want to do, or you're just still figuring out kind of what you want to do, and it's a temporary placeholder.
Yeah.
Should definitely be something like, this is what I want, this is what I can get out of my degree, because that's gonna mean the most for you and make the grad school opportunities in that future career field the most rewarding.
Yeah, I think you bring up an interesting point. I don't want to steal anybody else's advice, but I always one thing I always tell people, grad school is probably not a place to find yourself. I mean, it helps if you kind of have a plan. It's not a place to, like, I don't know what I want to do with my life. It's probably not. Maybe start somewhere else. And so Ursula, what about you? Any advice that someone gave you, or you'd like to say to an audience about graduate school or graduate training, or I don't know, whatever.
I definitely agree with what Connor said. Going into grad school, you have to be passionate about the subject because it is tough and there's a lot of challenges that you'll face along the way. I'm going to say like a cliche quote is do what you love and love what you do. Because if you're not enjoying it, you're not going to do well in it and you're not going to give it your all. Also, I think one very important advice that I got early on is to be flexible because this is research. So you're not going to always get the results that you were expecting to get. You're not going to always do exactly the same work or experiment that you thought you were going to do at the beginning. Things change. Things might happen along the way. And you just need to be flexible and be okay with not everything turning out exactly the way you want it to be.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. And you do need to be flexible, right? And because there's going to be disappointments and not everything's going to work. And you can't quit, and that's the thing, So Richard, what about you? I mean, these guys are giving great advice. There's a lot of pressure on you. Okay. So there's a lot of pressure. I mean, I don't know. What would you say?
So I totally agree with them. And I think to build up on their thoughts is that one advice that I got was just try, to make a good and confident decision. It's better if you try something before. And then, for example, for me, in my case, before I decided going to grad school, I did a lot of internships on labs and other sectors in the university just to get a feel of how that is. And I think that was a great opportunity for me to feel how that is and then make a conscious decision about, what to do next. I think that was a good advice that I got, and everybody that asks me, I use that example.
That is for sure something that when we get applicants, are looking for. Okay, this person says they want to do science, but have they ever done any science other than chemistry lab or something like that? It does help, to get some experience, and that's correct. And the internships are a great way to kind of move the needle. What about you, Erica, from the food side? You just like ice cream, or how did that work? I mean, like, I gotta work on ice cream, or I don't know, like, I love bifidobacteria, I mean, or whatever that bifido infantilis or infantitis or what. I'm worse than your mother. I'm worse than your mother. All right.
Yeah, I think for me, the piece of advice that I have learned throughout my experience in grad school is that grad school is really a lot of ups and downs, and sort of maybe not like the hills of Ohio, but probably more like the mountains of California. There's times that you're going to be at the top of the mountain, there's times that you're going to be in the valley, but I think the persistence and resiliency through those times is really what will carry you on throughout your grad school program.
You got to be tough, right? It's not for the faint-hearted. And if you become a faculty member or professional, you got to be tough. You have to be tough, and you got to hold it together. I was really lucky. The way I got into science, because maybe each of you has your own story, which we won't have time to go through, but I didn't know anything about science. I was an animal science major. I didn't know anything about science. I was heading off to I was talking to my advisor as an undergraduate, and he said, "Well, your work study, what are you going to do?" I said, "Well, I'm going to go to the union and wash dishes. They have this job washing dishes at the campus dining hall, and because that's what everybody did. That's what we did, you're freshmen, And he said, my wife's got a job in her lab. Would you like to just go work in a lab? And I'm like, yeah, whatever. I don't know. What's a lab? I mean, literally, like, what's a lab? What do they do there? And then you get in there and, I wash dishes in the lab instead of the dining hall, but, you wash dishes in the lab for a couple of years, all of a sudden you get exposed to a lot of science, indirectly. And I don't know why, but I just liked it. I don't know why. I just thought it was interesting and fun, and I always tell people, you guys have given great advice, and one of the things I've always thought about is, why am I doing this? Well, because I like it. It's fun. It's interesting. And I always tell people, science is way too hard not to have fun. Okay, it's way too hard. If you don't like it, it's way too hard. You have to enjoy it, because if you don't enjoy it, it's just, it ain't gonna work, and so, and I can say from my perspective as a faculty member, and I've been here 30 years now, I like coming to work. I don't know why. I'm very comfortable here. I like young people. I like being at work. I like doing science. I like talking about science. I love talking to you guys. You guys are great. Okay. And I don't know. That's how I feel. I just like it. It's just kind of fun, and then you can get paid. I have like a house and a car. I got 2 cars. Okay. I got 2 cars and I got money to feed my cat. I mean, so you get paid for this, all this fun, and that's interesting, isn't it? So the last question I'll ask, and then we'll close. And let me just say, because I'm just scatterbrained, I'm going to say it twice. I'm going to say, first of all, you guys have been great. Okay. You guys are the best. Okay. And it's been so much fun. But before we close, you have to tell me, what would you have done if you weren't in science? Okay. Now this is impossible. Okay. I'm really, and for you listeners out there, we challenged them to come up with something interesting. Okay. So I don't know. Connor, did you come up with anything interesting you would do if you weren't in science?
I mean, I think it's not daring, but it's somewhat related. One thing growing up was taking part in summer at the Oregon Zoo. So I'd say zookeeper for me. Like that was the basic. You basically pay them to clean the cages, and that was like what I did up front. And then I got involved with 4-H and showed pigs and stuff, and got more understanding the agriculture side of animal science. But I think I'd definitely say for sure that I'd probably be a zookeeper if I was not on this dairy sustainability pathway.
Yeah, that's amen, right? Fascinating, right? Fascinating, and I'm always fascinating with species, and this, and you're passionate about a lot of things, and I'm sure you're passionate about climate, but also species extinction and all that other stuff, and it is linked together, I guess, those things. Ursula, you got anything under your hat there? What would Ursula do? She wasn't doing dairy nutrition.
Ursula was very close to becoming an architect, actually. When
Oh,
I first,
an
when I first,
architect.
yeah, when I first applied to Michigan State, the major that I picked was landscape architecture. And that was because they didn't have architecture by itself. So I was like, okay, the closest thing is landscape architecture. I just always enjoyed buildings and drawing and painting and all that. Just my artistic side, really enjoyed that. So I really thought that was my path, and that was what I was gonna do.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah, there's a big architecture school at Cornell, and I know Connor would know that, and it's those people worked hard. That was hard. That's another hard one, is architecture. Boy, they were hardcore. Richard, what are you thinking about? Richard, let's see. Brazil. I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
so when I was applying for school, actually one of the schools that I applied was for meteorology, so it would be like totally different. Just because I really enjoy mathematics and statistics, and I was like, okay, maybe that could be nice, but I ended up going to animal science, and I still love statistics and mathematics. So hopefully one day I will learn more. But that was I think that could be a good ended up for my school.
Yeah, interesting. And Erica, what would you do if you weren't in this business?
I think I would do something related to interior decorating or interior design. So growing up, my mom and I would, redecorate together, and it was just the time of my life. So it's something that holds near and dear to my heart. So I'd probably go into that.
That's fascinating. You like the creative side of things then. So
Yes.
let me guess, your apartment is not wrecked.
No.
Your apartment's pretty nice, all right?
At least not this week.
This week. Yeah, yeah, it's interesting. And I think from my perspective, I probably went into engineering. I really enjoy math and science, and I enjoy sort of structural things and sort of that sort of thing. But growing up, I don't know what it was, but we never really talked about engineering as a career. And I don't know if it was just the way my high school was or what, but we never really discussed engineering. It wasn't really something. I remember when I got to Cornell, I was talking to one of the kids on my hallway, and I said, "What do you do?" He says, "I'm an engineer." And I'm like, "What's that?" And so it's kind of funny how, your career sort of goes but I wouldn't I've told people I came from a small town in upstate New York, and I have had a career that was in dairy that's beyond my imagination, and just basically through having a lot of fun and doing a lot of science. And I owe a lot to the American Dairy Science Association for the doors it kicked open for me. I owe a lot to the dairy industry and their acceptance of sort of progressive ideas and moving things forward, and so I'm going to wrap this up, and again, I just wanted to say that I want to say a couple of things. So I hope someone is still listening out there in podcast world, but I hope you've listened to this point and you've come to understand that dairy science and the research and production and food side of the equation is in very good hands. Okay, we have just talked to people that are just either PhDs or recently completing their PhDs, and these individuals are set and ready to carry the ball forward. And I would like to thank you sincerely for taking the time to talk to me, and wish you all the best in your careers, because you're going to have a great time. So with that, I'm going to close this episode of Dairy Digressions. Thank again the American Dairy Science Association for sponsoring this podcast, and thank our speakers. So thank you very much.
Yeah, and can I put a personal plug in there for next year, just to add that? And then Dr. Lucy, one other thing is for everyone, graduate students listening out there, if you want to partake in the competitions next year, just look for when the abstracts are due, probably sometime around beginning middle of February. Look for applying to either the oral or poster competitions for both the production and dairy foods, if you're interested in partaking this next year in West Palm Beach.
All right. Get your science done now, because you need an abstract to enter the competition, right? So work hard. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll see you. Thank you.